Let me ask you something most men never stop to consider. The last time you complimented a woman, what did you say? If you're being honest, it was probably something about how she looked. You told her she was beautiful. You told her she looked amazing tonight. Maybe you said she had incredible eyes or a great smile. And she smiled back, said thank you, and moved on. Because she has heard it before. From the man before you, from the one before him, from every admirer who stood in front of her and saw only the surface and thought that noticing the surface was enough. Here is the uncomfortable truth. If you only compliment what she sees in the mirror, she will only ever see you as another admirer. And admirers are everywhere. They are forgettable by design. They blend into the background of her life the way wallpaper does present, harmless, invisible. What separates the man she remembers from the man she forgets is not how loudly he praised her appearance. It is whether he ever made her feel seen beneath it. There is a layer of a woman's psychology that most men never reach. Not because it is hidden or complicated, but because most men never think to look for it. That layer is where identity lives, where self-perception lives, where the parts of herself she has quietly worked on, quietly protected, quietly wondered whether anyone would ever notice those parts live there. And when a man reaches that layer through what he says, something shifts inside her that 1,000 surface-level compliments could never produce. This is not about flattery. Flattery is noise. What we are talking about is precision. The difference between a man who makes a woman feel attractive and a man who makes a woman feel understood is the difference between a ripple and an earthquake. One is pleasant. The other is unforgettable. By the end of this, you will understand exactly how to close that gap. Not through performance, not through rehearsed lines, but through a deeper understanding of how a woman's emotional mind actually works. The first compliment that reaches beyond beauty begins with something most men walk right past: her scent, not her outfit, not her hair, the fragrance she chose before she walked out the door. When you tell a woman that her perfume is addictive, not generically, not loudly, but quietly, almost like you're confessing something, you are doing something neurologically significant. Smell is the only sense directly wired to the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotional memory. It bypasses logic entirely. It does not stop to be analyzed. It goes straight to feeling, straight to association, straight to the place where impressions are stored not as facts but as experiences. So when you say it softly, that fragrance stays with me. I can't explain it. You are not just complimenting how she smells. You are anchoring yourself to something she will repeat. Every time she reaches for that bottle before a night out, before work, before walking into a room she wants to own, your voice has the potential to echo somewhere in the background of that moment. You have tied yourself to a ritual, and rituals repeat. Most men only notice what they see. The man who notices what she feels like to be around is operating in a completely different category. Deliver it low. Deliver it slow, not as a performance, as a quiet, almost reluctant observation, the kind that sounds like you tried not to say it but couldn't help yourself. That restraint is what gives it weight. The second compliment moves from sensation to presence. When you tell a woman that her smile changes the energy of a room, you are not commenting on her teeth or the symmetry of her face. You are acknowledging her impact. There is a profound difference between being told you are beautiful and being told that when you walk in, something shifts. One validates appearance, the other validates power. And power is something women rarely hear acknowledged directly. Think about what it means to affect a space. To walk into a room that felt tense or cold or heavy and have the atmosphere soften simply because you arrived. That is not about looks. That is about the energy a person carries, the warmth they project without trying, the ease they create without announcing it. When you recognize that in a woman, you are telling her that you see something most people experience but never name. You are giving language to something she has always felt but rarely heard confirmed. Hold eye contact a half-second longer than comfortable when you say it. Let the sentence breathe before you finish it. Confidence is quiet. It does not rush. And a woman who feels that you see her power, not just her appearance, begins to feel powerful around you. That is a very different dynamic than admiration. That is the beginning of pull. The third compliment requires you to have been paying attention. Not performing attention, actually paying it. When a woman says something honest, something slightly unfiltered, something that risks being judged, and you respond by acknowledging that quality directly, you create something that flirting alone can never manufacture. You create psychological safety. And psychological safety is the foundation beneath every lasting attraction. We live in a world that constantly asks women to be agreeable, to smooth their edges, to be pleasant and palatable and careful, not to take up too much space with opinions that make people uncomfortable. So when a woman drops that performance around you, when she says the slightly controversial thing at the dinner table, when she gives you the honest answer instead of the socially safe one that is not accidental, that is a test she is running without fully realizing it. She is checking whether you will flinch, whether you will try to redirect the conversation, whether she has to become a softer version of herself to keep your approval. When you meet that moment by smiling and saying something as simple as, "That is what I like about you," you don't perform, you communicate something she has been quietly searching for. You tell her the real version is the one you want, that she does not need to edit herself around you. What happens psychologically in that moment is significant. The guard comes down, not all at once, but a door opens that was previously closed. Because now you are not another person she has to manage her image around. You are someone she can exhale around. And the craving to return to that feeling, the relief of being fully real with another person, is one of the most powerful emotional forces in human psychology. You did not compliment her appearance. You validated her courage. That is a different currency entirely, and it is one that does not depreciate. The fourth compliment shifts the terrain again. This time, you are engaging her mind. When you tell a woman that the way she sees the world makes you think differently, you are doing something most men in her life have never done. You are treating her perspective as something worth being changed by. You are not just listening to her talk. You are telling her that what she said moved something in your thinking. That lands in a place that physical compliments simply cannot reach. There is a deep psychological need in every person to feel that their inner world has value. Not their appearance, not their social currency, not their utility to others, their actual perspective, the way their mind assembles meaning from experience. When a man reflects that back to a woman, when he says, "I had not thought about it that way before," and means it, she stops feeling like someone being observed and starts feeling like someone being understood. The attraction that grows from that shift is not surface level. It is not dependent on lighting or chemistry or the right night. It is rooted in something far more durable, intellectual respect. And the man who earns intellectual respect is not easily replaced because he is rare. He did not just want her attention, he engaged her mind, and now she is curious about his. The fifth compliment is one that requires a particular kind of security to deliver. When you tell a woman that her energy makes you want to be better, you are offering her something most men are too guarded to give. Influence, not dependency influence. The distinction is critical. A man who says, "I cannot function without you," is communicating weakness. A man who says, "Being around you sharpens something in me," is communicating alignment. He is already grounded. He is already moving. She does not complete him. She amplifies him. And amplification is one of the highest forms of relational value a person can offer another. Women who carry strong energy, women who are disciplined, warm, purposeful, intentional in how they move through life, are often aware of their effect on others, but rarely hear it articulated by a man from a position of strength. They hear it from men who are impressed, from men who are intimidated, from men who either put them on a pedestal or quietly resent the ceiling their presence creates. But the man who says, "Your energy makes me want to be better," while maintaining his own calm authority, is communicating something entirely different. He is saying, "I see your strength, and I rise with it, rather than shrink from it. That is alignment. And alignment between two people who are both building something is one of the most powerful foundations attraction can rest on. Say it grounded. Say it without awe, without exaggeration, with the quiet certainty of a man who knows exactly what he noticed. The sixth compliment asks you to see the invisible labor. Every woman in a relationship, in a friendship, in a family, in any close dynamic, does work that no one claps for. She remembers the detail you mentioned 3 weeks ago and brings it up when it matters. She notices when the energy in a room shifts and adjusts without being asked. She checks in after the hard day you mentioned in passing. She arranges things so everyone feels included without ever announcing that she did it. This is the kind of care that is so consistent it becomes expected. And expected things do not get acknowledged. They simply become the furniture of a relationship present, essential, invisible. When you look at her and say, "You are one of the most thoughtful people I have met," and you say it not as flattery but as an observation you have been sitting with, you cut through every layer of noise and reach something she has quietly wanted confirmed for a long time. That her care is not invisible. That someone noticed the quality of her attention. That the part of her which gives without asking for applause has been seen. Women attach deeply to the people who see their goodness rather than just their beauty. Because beauty is easy to see. Goodness requires attention, and attention, real attention, is one of the rarest things one person can offer another. When she realizes you are paying that kind of attention, something inside her shifts from interest to investment. She is not just drawn to you, she is beginning to trust you. And trust is the foundation beneath everything that lasts. The seventh compliment addresses something that ambitious women carry as both a gift and a burden. Their drive, their focus. The way they talk about their future with a clarity that makes some people uncomfortable and others defensive. When you tell a woman that her purpose inspires you, not intimidates you, not threatens you, but inspires you, you are doing something that reorders her internal assessment of who you are in the space of a single sentence. Driven women are frequently misread. They are told they are too much, too focused, too intense, too independent for their own good. They learn early that ambition in a woman makes certain men shrink and others compete. So they develop a quiet awareness of how to read a man's reaction to their goals, whether he leans in with curiosity or pulls back with ego. When you do not flinch. When you do not deflect into a joke about how serious she is. When you simply say, "I respect how focused you are," that is rare. You are communicating a level of security that separates you from nearly every man who has stood where you are standing. You are not threatened by her direction. You are drawn to it. And a woman who has spent years reading men's discomfort around her ambition will register that response at a level deeper than words. She will file it. She will return to it. Because it is the answer to a question she has been asking for a long time, whether a man exists who will not eventually ask her to be smaller so he can feel bigger. The eighth and final compliment is the deepest because it moves entirely past appearance, past intellect, past ambition, and addresses the rarest quality of all. The ability to make other people feel seen. There are people who command attention when they walk into a room, and then there are people who walk into a room and make everyone in it feel like the most important person present. The second kind is rarer, and it is more powerful, because attention is common. It is directed at people constantly. But the feeling of being truly seen, of having someone make you feel that in this moment you matter, is something people remember for the rest of their lives. When a woman has this quality, when she listens without preparing her response, when she adjusts her presence based on who she is with, when she notices the person sitting quietly at the edge of the conversation and draws them in, she is practicing emotional intelligence at its highest form. And most men experience the benefit of this quality without ever naming it. They simply feel better around her. They feel lighter. They feel more like themselves. When you name it, when you say you have this rare way of making people feel valued, and I notice it, you are giving language to something she has always done, but rarely received credit for. You are acknowledging the part of her that exists entirely in service of other people's comfort. And that acknowledgement reaches her identity, not her ego. It touches the core of who she believes herself to be, which means it stays. Now look at all 8 together. You noticed her scent, you anchored memory, you recognized her impact on a room, you validated her power. You honored her authenticity, you created safety, you engaged her perspective, you built intellectual respect, you acknowledged her effect on your growth, you created alignment. You saw her invisible care, you earned her trust. You respected her ambition, you communicated security. You recognized her emotional intelligence, you touched her identity. None of these are lines. None of them are tactics to be deployed without sincerity. They are the natural output of a man who has learned to pay a different quality of attention, the kind that moves past the surface and reaches the substance. Most men never get there, not because they are incapable, but because no one ever told them that the surface was the least interesting part. That beneath the appearance that everyone notices is a mind that wants to be engaged, a character that wants to be respected, an ambition that wants to be seen without flinching, a carefulness that wants to be acknowledged, and an emotional depth that wants to be recognized by someone who understands its value. The man who understands these layers does not chase reactions. He creates impressions. And impressions, the kind that reach identity rather than ego, do not fade. They compound. They deepen. They become the reason she finds herself thinking about you at moments that have nothing to do with you. Because you did not just see her, you understood her. And being understood by someone who did not have to understand you, who chose to pay that quality of attention because they recognize something worth paying it to, is one of the most powerful experiences a human being can have. Say less, mean more, deliver it without desperation, without performance, without the anxious energy of a man hoping for a reaction. Deliver it the way a man delivers an observation he has been sitting with quietly, certainly, without needing it to land a particular way, because the man who needs her to react is asking for validation. The man who simply says the true thing and lets it settle is offering it. And there is a profound difference in how those two things feel to receive. One flatters, the other transforms. Become the second kind of man, not because it is a strategy, because it is the most honest way to communicate, that you see a person fully, and what you see is worth every word you chose to say about it. Most men will finish watching this and go back to saying the same things they have always said. You don't have to. You now understand something about how a woman's mind works that most men spend their entire lives never learning. The difference between the man she forgets and the man she thinks about at 2 a.m. is not how attractive he was. It is how understood he made her feel. That is the shift. That is the edge. And it starts the moment you decide to stop complimenting the surface and start recognizing the substance. If this opens something in your mind, subscribe. Not for entertainment, for the kind of clarity that actually changes how you move through the world. And tell me in the comments which one of these 8 hit you the hardest. Which one are you going to use first? Drop the number below. I read every single one.